We are back at it again. Um, and we stopped on chapter 69. And let me tell you, I get it, and 26 chapters for this time around? It's a lot, and I understand that. So, thank you, first off, for reading. And I just want to remind you also, if you're watching this video, the point of these videos is not just for me to run through, like, here's what the chapter did. Enjoy. It's for me to kind of give you a little bit of insight on yes, here's what the chapter did in case you were confused or if something was maybe not completely clear to you and you just want to make sure you understood it the way you should understand it. Great, I'm here to help. Second thing is just kind of to discuss a couple of the things that happen in the chapters. I talk very candidly in these videos and I tell you, hey, these are my feelings, or I can't believe that happened, this is crazy. These are all my thoughts. So I like to share my thoughts as I talk about the story. You're going to have your own thoughts. You don't have to agree with my thoughts. But I like to share those thoughts with you, so maybe you can be thinking, oh, I thought the same thing to myself when I was watching this video. Or not watching this video, I'm sorry, when I was reading the story. So, I mean, feel free to relate in that way. But anyway, we're going to start with chapter 70. That's where I told you to get started on. And we end with chapter 95. I know. I'm going to have to make a couple of these videos for sure. So with chapter 69, I believe, and I don't have it written down with me, but I believe we ended with Albert inviting the Count of Monte Cristo to this summer ball that his family is hosting. And so the Count of Monte Cristo has promised him he will be there, and chapter 70 is the day of this ball. And so the ball, I think, my understanding is it kind of takes place inside, and then outside they have all these different tents and things set up, and it's just kind of a nice summer evening. It's supposed to just be really fancy evening with fancy guests and just a big show of money, basically, on a nice night. So it kind of sounds like fun. I don't know about you. But anyway, we have the start of the ball. People are arriving. And then just as a reminder, too, I have my notes kind of here off to the side, off screen here. I said off screen. And they just kind of help me stay focused here. So I wrote down my own little summary of the text, and it helps me remember, oh, that's right. I read 26 chapters as well. Where did we get started on? So we've got people arriving to this ball. We've got Danglars and his family. We have the Villefort family. Maximilian Morel shows up. They're kind of just asking around, hey, is the Count of Monte Cristo coming? Is he here? Have you seen him? And so he's kind of this, I don't even know, they've really elevated him in his status. So he's a really popular dude in this social circle that they run through. So we've kind of seen him start from the bottom a little bit and look at where he's managed to be. Of course, I shouldn't say start from the bottom, because when he arrived into their midst, he arrived as a hero, right? He had saved Albert from Luigi Vampa, so not quite the bottom. But anyway, so they're asking about the Count of Monte Cristo, and Madame de Villefort shares the news that they discovered the background on the Count of Monte Cristo. He shares this news with Albert, and Albert's like, okay, interesting. Really, she's not talking about much of anything because they didn't find a lot of dirt on him. She's just like, oh, here's his real name. Also, he's the son of, what was it, like a ship owner from Malta? Who cares? Really? No one who cares. Soon after this, the Count of Monte Cristo does arrive. All eyes are on him. They're like, there he is. Oh my gosh. And he nods to Mercedes. She's hosting this party too with her husband, and she doesn't say anything to him. He doesn't say anything to her. It's kind of an awkward moment, actually. And then he goes straight to Albert, and he kind of chats with Albert. So they talk about Monsieur de Morcerf, who is chatting with some well-educated dudes. He's kind of like, oh, where's your dad? What's he doing? Because his dad is the one hosting the party, Morcerf. And he's like, oh, yeah, he's talking over there with some intelligence guys, which, if you read the story, these guys are not important. You don't have to worry about them. But one of these guys discovered a new kind of lizard. And it's just a really weird, I don't know, anecdote about this guy. But anyway, so Count of Monte Cristo finishes chatting with Albert. Danglars comes over, and he talks about how the Count really seems to like his title a lot. So kind of implying that maybe Danglars knows this background on the Count of Monte Cristo that doesn't matter. So I don't know. Danglars is jabbing at him a little bit. Weird conversations, I'm going to say, at this party. And so the Count of Monte Cristo decides to jab back a little bit, and he informs Danglars that a bank that has been doing business with him has gone bankrupt, has gone under, And so Danglars is like, oh my gosh, there goes $200,000, or not dollars, francs, that they took out from me. Like, they still owe me this money. And so Count's like, oh, that's too bad. And the Count also says that they really can't talk about this anymore because, oh, look, Andrea's on his way over. Remember, Danglars really wants Andrea to marry Eugenie. So there's that whole weird thing. But he's like, if we're caught talking about this, Andrea's going to be like, wait, you're running out of money? I don't want to marry your daughter. And so they stop talking about it. But of course, this plants that other seed in Danglars' mind, and this is just not good for him. He relies on all this money, and he relies on the business that he does with other people. And if he's losing business, money, he's going to be ruined soon. This isn't good for him. But of course, maybe, probably, this is a part of Edmond Dante's overall plan for the ruination of Danglars. Anyway, so Andrea goes to Danglars, whatever, and then we have Mercedes, who walks over to the Count of Monte Cristo, and she's kind of, well, first off, she's been watching him, and she's been noticing that he's not eating or drinking anything. And so we need to understand also that if you're not eating or drinking, I guess during this time period at like a social function or at someone's house, it's kind of a show of disrespect. Like, you don't want to just take anything that these people are offering to you and be like, I don't respect you, so I don't want any of your things. I don't want to eat at your place. I don't want to drink at your place. I have no respect for you and what you're offering to me. And so she sees this and she's like, what? Is he angry at us? Does he have something against us? What's going on? And so at the end of the chapter, she's like, come with me. And so she takes the Count of Monte Cristo's arm. He's like, okay, sure. And she begins to lead him somewhere. We don't know where that is, but the chapter ends. Chapter 71 starts, and it's nice the way this book usually works. We are with them, and they are walking towards the greenhouse. So the chapter 71 just continues what happened in 70. And so once she gets to the greenhouse, she's like, try this grape. It's from blah, 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 whatever she says to him, where she's like, just try this. It's a delicacy. He's like, no, it's okay. Later, she makes him, or she tries to get him to try a peach, and he politely refuses. So he's just not eating the food, and she's kind of weird about it. So anyway, she tries, she fails, and so they're chatting. They're away from the party. They're just one-on-one. They're talking. And she asks some questions. She asks, first off, if he is married. Seems like kind of a weird question to ask, but she brings up how she saw him with Haydée, the slave from Greece who's not a slave anymore. We know that whole story. And so she brings up Haydée, and he's like, no, she's basically my daughter. Like, that's who she is. And then later on, he says that when he was in Malta, he did love a girl. He was about to marry her, but that war took him from her. So they were so close to getting married, but war just ripped him away from her. And he thought that maybe she would wait for him, and that once he returned from war, she would be there and they would get married. But when he returned, she was married. And of course, we know at this point in the story, I was like, look at this. We know that he is talking about them and their relationship. He's like, oh my gosh, we were about to get married. I thought you would wait. You didn't wait. And so he's like using this not third person, sorry, but he's using this like very vague example to be like, that was you. You didn't wait. And so they talk about this love in sort of this like coded way. And she asks if he's forgiven this girl that married when he was gone. And he's like, I have. And so kind of weird stuff, but again, we have to kind of imply that she knows who he is, but she hasn't said it and she hasn't revealed anything further. They don't say, oh, that was us. Remember that time? No, they don't do it. And of course, they're at risk of people overhearing. They're still at the party, even though they're kind of distanced from it. So Albert eventually runs in, of course. Albert's all over the place all the time. Albert runs in saying that Monsieur de Villefort has arrived to collect his wife and daughter. And apparently, Monsieur de Saint-Méran, so Villefort's first father-in-law, he had his first wife, and that was his first wife's parents. So this man, her dad, he is dead. What? And so Villefort's coming to get his wife and his daughter because he's like, your grandpa died. But Valentine, like, we got to go. And so Valentine, we see, is very upset. We end the chapter with Valentine and Madame de Villefort having just left, and Morel also kind of slips out at the same time. So, okay, yikes. So chapter 72 starts. we're going back in time just a little bit. So we're going to notice that over the course of the next few chapters, actually I'm going to say through 95, and 95 does it too, where time kind of moves in different paths. And so we kind of have to be vigilant in understanding, like, okay, are we a little bit back in time or are we present day? What's going on right here? And so we're going back in time just a little bit to before Villefort finding out about his father-in-law from before. So his first father-in-law, let's call him that. So Villefort, in this chapter, we start with him in his office. He's contemplating about the Count of Monte Cristo, and I have a quote here. He's thinking, what interest can this Monsieur de Monte Cristo or Monsieur Zacconi, son of a ship owner of Malta, discoverer of a mine in Thessaly, now visiting Paris for the first time? What interest, I say, can he take in discovering a gloomy, mysterious, and useless fact like this? One thing appears certain and clear in my opinion, that in no period, in no case, in no circumstance could there have been any contact between him and me. And so Villefort is still puzzling over why in the world did the Count of Monte Cristo have any interest in revealing this fact about this baby that Villefort had with Madame Danglars. He's still just like, why did he reveal about that baby? Also, that baby's body didn't exist there because I tried to look for it before. Remember, we learned that recently. And he's like, what? I don't understand. Why did he want to reveal that at the party either? So he is just very confused right now. So we're puzzling we know the answer, but we're puzzling right along with him. He's contemplating about it. But we know that even he doesn't believe this. And we kind of get his perspective here too. He knows that he doesn't even believe this. He's freaking himself out. And so he's, we must have met. We really must have met. I don't know how I know him. I don't know how he knows me. I don't know why he has this dirt on me and what he's going to do with it. So he's freaking himself out totally. And all of a sudden, Madame de Saint Méran, so again, his first mother-in-law, comes running in crying about how her husband has died. And so, of course, his mind is no longer on the Count of Monte Cristo, knowing the secret. He's like, what is happening? What? Welcome. What are you doing here? And so she said that he had been sick for a few days, but he had been happy to see Valentine. So like he came to visit Valentine, but then when he came or on his way back home, he fell asleep in the carriage, didn't wake up. And so Madame de Saint Méran arrived at home with the corpse of her husband. How terrible is that? That's so bad. That's so sad. So anyway, so she's relaying this information to her son-in-law, essentially. And so she insists on seeing Valentine. She's like, I have to talk to her. I don't know. She's just in hysterics. And so she loves Valentine. And we know that her and her husband, Madame and Monsieur de Saint Méran, were going to leave Valentine a lot of money. And so with him dying, or with him dead, I should say, maybe she needs to talk to Valentine about being an heir of this money, or maybe she just wants to see Valentine, granddaughter. I don't know. Let's find out. So anyway, I should say, Villefort goes to the ball to go get his wife, go get his daughter, and so we can see that we're kind of at that point of the end of chapter 71, right? So now everything's kind of added up. He goes to get them, and at the same time, Barroy, remember this is Noirtier's servant. So Barroy goes to Noirtier and just shares this news with him. All right, you with me? Lots of stuff. And so Valentine arrives at home. Again, she's really upset about her grandpa dying. And Barroy, back with the servant of Noirtier, Barroy whispers to her that Noirtier wants to chat with her. And so she, of course, goes straight to Madame de Saint Méran. She's like, I'm so sorry. Like, Grandpa, I miss him. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? And so she's just like, taking care of her grandma. Her grandma is terrible right now. She is not terrible. She's feeling terrible. Cannot blame her for that. And so she's just kind of holding her. She's kind of just talking to her. And then finally, when she leaves, she goes up to see her grandpa, Noirtier. Remember, grandpa on the other side of the family. And so she goes up to see Noirtier. She wishes that she goes up there and she's like, I just left her. What do you need to see me for? And he just kind of signals to her, like, I want you to know that you still have me. And so, I don't know. Sometimes older people get weird about people dying and they're just like, I want you to remember, I'm still with you. Don't worry. And so she's like, thanks, Grandpa. Got it. That's the end of that. In the morning, we have Madame de Saint Méran, who's not doing too well. Apparently, she's sick. So it's one of those things where it's like, is she sick from whatever Monsieur de Saint Méran had, or is she sick because of her heart breaking? I don't know. That's a thing, right? So she's truly sick. She speaks with Villefort and she says that she wants to speed up Valentine's marriage because she's going to die soon. So she's like, I do not want to die before I see Valentine get married. I want to see this happen. And so she's like, hurry it up, let's go. And of course, Valentine's like, oh no, I don't want to get married. I don't want to marry this dude. I want to marry Maximilian. I don't want to marry Franz, who's supposed to come back soon. So, however, Valentine speaks to her grandmother and says, my dear grandmother, consider decorum, the recent death. You would not have me marry under such sad auspices. So remember too, like, her grandpa just died. So she's like, do you really want me to get married in all this like doom and gloom and grandpa dying? But grandma's like, uh-huh, I do. And so she continues to insist on the marriage. She brings up how last night she wasn't sleeping well. She also brings up something kind of sketchy seeming. So this is Madame de Villefort speaking here, Grandma. She says, I saw a white figure enter my room last night. I heard that she moved, or this white figure, maybe I shouldn't say she or he, moved my glass that was on my night table. And that's all that happened. And then that white figure disappeared. And so she's like, I talked to the servant about it. The servant did not see the glass moved. I believe that this white figure was my husband. So kind of weird that her husband or her husband's ghost, whatever you want to call it, came in and was like, oh yes, your cup of water on your nightstand. Let me just pick it up, move it, put it back down, and leave. Something seems fishy here, right? Okay, not just me. Glad. So anyway, she mentions also at the end of this, when Valentine's like, that's super creepy. I think you're just seeing things. Madame de Saint Méran is like, I'm also just really thirsty. I keep drinking from this cup that was on my nightstand, and I'm just really thirsty. That was the cup that was touched by a phantom. She's like, you know what? Also, all that aside, I would like a notary so I can leave everything to you, Valentine. So a very loaded conversation with a lot of different things. So we can kind of leave maybe the cup touching alone for right now, but maybe you have some ideas about it. Hopefully you do. So cup touching happened, notary now, okay, so we can leave everything to Valentine, which we knew was going to happen. Valentine's going to inherit a lot of money. When these grandparents die, when Nortier dies, just she has a lot coming her way. Anyway, so the notary arrives soon thereafter, remains alone with Madame de Saint Méran, and then the doctor arrives soon thereafter too, because the doctor needs to see Madame de Saint Méran and make sure everything's okay. So they discuss Madame de Saint Méran, and we learn that, or excuse me, Monsieur, yikes, de Saint Méran, we learn that he died from, I had to write this down, apoplectic stroke. So he had a stroke, which seems kind of weird because he was still in decent health. He wasn't too old. I think he was in his 60s, which is older, but it's not that old. That's the age of some, I shouldn't say some of my parents. My parents are in their early 60s, and so it seems a little bit weird. I don't know. Now, we also need to remember, and maybe your thoughts were going in this way before, but we also need to remember several chapters behind. I can't recall the actual chapter, but do you remember when when the Count of Monte Cristo brought poison over to Madame de Villefort and was like, yes, this poison in small doses can really help someone, but in large doses can be a poison and can cause apoplectic shock and stroke. And she's like, oh, interesting. Thank you for this. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Just be thinking about it. So cool. Then the doctor goes to go see Madame de Saint Méran. Chapter ends with Valentine going outside to just take a walk, get some air, and weirdly enough, Maximilian's outside waiting for her. Which this isn't their usual time to meet, but she's like, hey, and he's like, oh my gosh, come here. And she's like, you've been waiting for me? How long have you been waiting? What's going on? Why are you here? So chapter ends, we're in chapter 73, and the chapter just, it's like the chapter didn't even end. The scene continues. So chapter 73, we have Valentine sharing that soon I'll be married to Franz. I'm not excited about it because she's like, you know, my grandma wants me to get married before she dies. My grandma's not doing too hot. And so she's like, whenever he gets into town, it's going to happen. And Morel's like, Maximilian's like, you know, he got into town this morning. You're getting married tomorrow. And so, of course, Valentine is like thunderstruck. She hates this and she's just completely overwhelmed. She's like, all this stuff at once. My grandpa's dead. My grandma's dying. Now I have to get married tomorrow in the midst of it. You'd probably be overwhelmed too if you were her. I know I would be. So Maximilian wants to know if she'll speak out against the union. He's like, I want to marry you. And so he says to her, I have another quote. What do you mean by a struggle? Oh, it would be sacrilege. What? I resist my father's orders? Excuse me, she says, sorry, Maximilian's not talking, she's talking. I'm going to re-say the quote. Valentine says, what do you mean by a struggle? Oh, it would be a sacrilege. What? I resist my father's orders and my dying grandmother's wish? Impossible. And so Maximilian's like, you wanted to marry me, right? You do want to marry me, correct? And she's like, what am I supposed to do? My dying grandmother wants to see this, and my dad wants to see it. I can't do anything. I have no power as his daughter. And so Maximilian's like, you gotta do it. And so she says she doesn't know what to do. And Maximilian's like, you know what? Marry me. Like, marry me. If you don't marry me, like, I'm just gonna leave. Like, I just need to get out of here. But also if you marry me, we can go to Paris. We can return once our friends have reconciled our families. We can make this okay. We can make this work. And she's like, I can't do that. And Maximilian's like, you know what? I wish you the best. And he starts walking away. I kind of like Maximilian for doing this, for being like, okay, if you can't do this, I have to go. But it's hard to see that too. You have to think about it from both sides, where Maximilian just really wants this, but Valentine's in a bad position. And no one knows that they're together. So what are they supposed to do? I guess other than Nortier, right? So she doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. Bad situation. And so she keeps asking him, no, come back. I love you. I do love you. Believe me, I love you. And so he tells her that once she's married to Franz, he will see that this is his own sealed fate, and he will kill himself. Now, if you had any sort of sympathy for Maximilian, it might be gone at that point. He's basically saying, you get married to Franz, I'm going to kill myself, okay? So now Valentine, this poor thing, if she wasn't overwhelmed before, imagine how she's feeling right now, where it's like, now she has to somehow figure out how to marry Maximilian. If she doesn't, he's dead. Whoa. Yikes. That's a big thing. So it's kind of also like almost an echo of Maximilian's father. Do you remember Morel, who was like, my family's ruined, I have no money, I must kill myself. And he like set everything up. He was about to kill himself, and then he was saved. So I don't know. If this is a kind of an echo of his own father, then will things work out for him? I would assume so. Anyway, so he says that this should not fall on her conscience if he were to die. He's like, don't put this on yourself, which how can you not in her position? If she's like, I'm going to marry Franz because my family's making me, and he's like, well, I'm going to go kill myself if you don't mind, and don't feel guilty about me dying. Don't worry about me. What? It's morbid. That's what this is. Finally, so Valentine feels like she has no other choice, probably. Finally, she's like, okay, I'll marry you, okay? I'm not going to marry Franz. I will marry you. But she starts crying about how she would be leaving everyone to be with him. And he's like, you know what? Go and get your grandfather's consent, okay? So, I don't know. Lots of weird stuff happening here still. Anyway, so she insists that she will go forth and delay her marriage to Franz. She's like, can you wait a little bit longer? I'll try to delay this. And then maybe in the meantime, some divine something will happen. And he's like, yep, that's fine. And she's like, okay, I will delay it. You wait for me. And then we will get married and we will be together. So they kiss, they leave each other. A day passes, and Valentine sends Maximilian a note. And so this note says the marriage signing will be at 9 p.m. tonight, and I will go ahead and meet you at 8:45 at the gate. So the marriage signing is going to be at 9 o'clock. She's going to meet him 15 minutes before so they can just run away together. Foolproof, right? So Maximilian gets everything set up. He gets the carriage all set up. He's like totally nervous. He's like, it's happening, it's happening. 9:30, she's not there. 9:30, he decides to head over to her family's house because he's like, something is going wrong. I don't know. So he gets to this family's house, and the whole house looks kind of just dark and not like a lot of excitement's happening. If a marriage contract is what they call it, if that's being signed, there would be a lot more excitement, a lot more fanfare, and it's just not happening. And so he's kind of just like staying in the shadows. He's really confused. And then he overhears two people walking by him. It is the doctor, and it is Monsieur de Villefort. So Villefort and the doctor are walking through kind of the garden area. And he overhears a couple of things. First thing he overhears is that Valentine's grandmother has died. So unfortunately, she didn't get to see Valentine get married, but she is dead. So I guess that kind of halted the whole marriage stuff tonight. The other thing that he overhears is the doctor saying that she didn't die from natural causes. Oh no, she died from being poisoned. And the doctor also suspects that her husband maybe died from being poisoned. Okay, interesting. Who has poison in that house? That's right, we should all know at this point. Madame de Villefort. Interesting. So if those two are dead, we got to think about this real quick. If those two are dead, Valentine gets their money a lot faster, right? And then if Valentine gets money and Valentine's not marrying anybody, which right now she's still marrying Franz, but Madame de Villefort doesn't like that. So if Valentine is not marrying anybody, then that money goes to the family. It goes to basically Villefort. And then Villefort can bequeath that money to the boy of the house, which would be Edward, Madame de Villefort's son. And so in a very roundabout way, these two dying would benefit Madame de Villefort because her son would wind up somehow inheriting this money in some way. Okay, you with me? So this is a big yikes. Big yikes is what's happening. So anyway, I think I flipped my page too fast. No, I didn't. Okay, so the two were still talking, and they're trying to figure out who did this, who would be the one to poison people. And so the doctor's like, does this grandma have any enemies? Who could it have been? And so the doctor goes over how it could have happened. Could maybe Baroy, remember Nortier's servant, could maybe Baroy have given her something that was meant for Nortier? And that's where we also learn that Nortier is taking small doses of this poison, right? So remember, in small doses, this small poison, if you kind of like say 1 dose today, 2 doses in a week, 3 doses in 3 weeks, that kind of a thing, you build up a tolerance to this poison. And for one reason or another, the doctor has Nortier taking small doses of this poison. And so he's like, oh shoot, if Baroy would have given this poison on accident to Madame de Saint-Méran, then she would have died because she doesn't have that tolerance. And at this point, Nortier's dosage is so high that it would be poison to anyone else but him. Oh, that would be bad. So he's like, okay, it could have been an accident. This could have happened. So the doctor's not accusing anybody. But Villefort is getting angry. He's like, no, I don't like the implications that you're making. I don't like you thinking that there even could be sketchiness happening in my household. So if it really wasn't an accident, and if someone's deliberately poisoning people in this household, that's bad. And so the doctor agrees to keep this secret. He's like, okay, we won't talk about it. Fine. And they leave each other. So Morel also kind of from his vantage point, he's still kind of in the shadows by the house. He looks up and he sees Valentine. This chapter also just goes on and on. So he looks up, sees Valentine, and he enters the house. So Maximilian Morel, he's being pretty daring at this point. Remember, he doesn't go into the house. He just meets Valentine at this gate outside of the house. So she's on like property and he's not. He's just at this gate. So he is on property. Now he's going inside of the house. Bold move. And so he doesn't come across anyone, thankfully. and he finds Valentine grieving. So she's actually in front of her grandma's bed crying, and he's like, hi, like, here I am. She tells him that Franz has arrived, but it was when her grandma was dying, and so they had to go ahead and just not sign the contract in that moment because this was much more pressing. Makes sense to me. Valentine also says that Morel cannot be seen by anybody, which we already knew. That it would be weird for him to be in the house. It doesn't make any sense. And so the only way out is going to be through Nortier's room. And I think I actually misspoke earlier. I think I told you that Nortier knows about them. He didn't at this point, so I apologize. I've just been reading so many chapters that I assumed it had already happened. So I apologize. Anyway, she brings him up to Nortier's room. She shows him to her grandpa, and she says, and I quote, I love him and will be only his. Were I compelled to marry another, I would destroy myself. So now Nortier has 2 lives on his hands, which is crazy. So Nortier didn't even know about Maximilian, right? And so Valentine comes up there and she's like, you know I don't like Franz, right? This is the man I love. This is Maximilian. And if I have to marry Franz, I will kill myself. Now, mind you, if she marries Franz, who also was going to kill himself? That's right, Maximilian. That's why at this point, even though Nortier doesn't realize it, he has 2 lives on his hands, where he's like, shoot, I can't get Valentine to kill herself. I can't have that happen. And so this poor man who can barely even communicate has to do something. So Maximilian expresses to Nortier how much he loves Valentine. He kind of wins over the grandpa, this is good. He gives Nortier a couple of ideas of how he can marry Valentine. He's like, what about this plan? What about this plan? Nortier doesn't like any of them. And so Nortier expresses how he will help the couple and how her contract with Franz will not be signed. So basically he's like, go about your life and do what you need to do. I'll make sure it doesn't happen. And that's got to be so hard for Maximilian to do, right? To just go about it like nothing even happened and see that this works out from this man who can't get up to do anything, can barely even signal to do anything. So let's see what that takes us to. So it becomes that she must continue as though she was to marry Franz. I already said all that. Yeah. So Maximilian goes home. He doesn't see Valentine again that evening, and he falls asleep exhausted. And that's where the chapter ends. And I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I think this is the end of chapter 73. We'll start at 74 next time. And we'll see what happens next. We'll see if Nortier's plan actually happens, whatever his plan is.